29.
28 seconds.
27.
26.
25 seconds.
24. 23.
22 seconds.
21 seconds.
20 seconds.
19.
18.
17 seconds.
16.
13 seconds.
14.
13 seconds.
12. 11.
10 seconds. 9.
8.
7.
6.
Copy. 5 seconds.
3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome, cadets, to Subspace Chatter. This week we'll be analyzing the 10th episode of Starfleet Academy, Rubincon, and no, that's not a mispronunciation. So lower the shields and prepare to engage as we beam up opinions on this episode. Joining me today are a group of experienced fellow instructors. Let's introduce ourselves, starting with you, Cadet Adam.
Good morning from New Zealand, Wellington. I am a long-time Trek fan and here to talk about my new favorite show, Academy.
And Philosophy.
We're Philosophy. It's pretty much what it says on the tin. Writer, historian, farmer, Star Trek fan. We grew up with Star Trek, and we're super glad to be here. Thanks so much for having us.
Javin.
Javon coming in from snowy Montana this morning. And if you have any grievances, I am a steward for Quark's Bar Union. So please inbox me on the Subspace channel.
Ren Rants.
Hi, I'm Ren from Ren Rants, and I'm also a lifelong Star Trek fan and loving Academy and can't wait to talk about it with you guys.
Phyllis.
Hi, I'm Phyllis. I'm a lifelong fan as well, from watching the original in repeats. And I had the pleasure of writing and producing Star Trek Voyager and Enterprise.
Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm coming in from rather cloudy Aberdeen in the United Kingdom, and I've been a Star Trek fan since the late 80s, early 90s.
And I'm Lieutenant Commander Eve Zellick, and I'm with the Starfleet Fandom Academy, which is a real life thing, and I'm the director of the College of Music. So let's get started. Questions are kind of not in any order. I just copy pasted, so bear with me here. I'm going to throw this one out here because I think we can agree the high point was Noose Braca doing his Noose things. Now, did anybody
kills that role?
If I throw out the line, the trial never ends, would you guys say that there's some serious parallels there between him and Q? Or what were your takes on that scene?
I didn't have, I mean, that line does. I didn't have the same kind of putting humanity on trial, and it's definitely not the same personality. So I don't find Noose godlike in any way. I find him smaller than that. And
don't tell him.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't mean it in terms of height. But I also, to me, I'm American, and he reminded me very much of my government at the moment.
To kind of go on that, if you don't mind, a big thing that we were thinking is, not to jump right into the spoiler here, is that Noose's hatred is entirely based off of a misunderstanding he had as a child that he was so compelled and consumed by hate over that he never thought to check his work to see if he actually was hating the right person. And that screams a huge portion of the American population right now.
It does, but I also feel like why would he question it? Because it's a truth that he's held since he was a little boy. He thinks he witnessed it happen in front of him. So I understand why up to this point he believes what he thinks he saw. But I
he never let any other
handles his obvious defeat is much more revealing about his character, where rather than having a a big road to Damascus sort of moment where he like turns it around. Instead, he's like, no, I'm gonna blow you up actually because I'm mad about this.
Yep.
Well, he says
so
lies.
Angry, so mad.
He calls it a lie, which was just so all of a sudden it completely confirmed everything I was thinking of him.
Well, I think the trial portion of it is that, harkens back to that. It wasn't the very first encounter with Q and Picard and humanity on trial, but I think throughout Star Trek, at least since Next Generation, it definitely continued in Deep Space Nine in some ways of this questioning: are we the good guys? Is what we're doing acceptable? And then, I guess, in the context of Academy post burn, when the dynamics of everything have changed, I think that is a really important thing that we always have to do. But there's a classic: is one person's freedom fighter another person's terrorist? Is regardless to what we're doing for ourselves, how does it impact others? And that theme, I think, is one of the things that I think Academy is dealing with, in particular with young people understanding what is their role in this broader world. The other thing that I think is really important is you got to grow the F up. I think Caleb's thing as well is that he has to mature out of the selfishness. Noose has not done that. He is still looking at the world through the eyes of a hurt child, not understanding, and you could go back and forth on, broader circumstances. His dad was reacting, did the wrong thing, what chicken versus egg. But at some point, you just got to grow up and look at the whole world and decide, what responsibility are you taking in what's going on.
I find it interesting how much he generates hatred and is trying to pit people against each other at every point, and it comes from great sarcastic lines as well. But that just reminds me of a certain kind of person beyond someone who just didn't grow up past their, initial boyhood trauma.
If you
I really like how it's juxtaposed, where we see like Noose being trapped in that boyhood trauma versus Caleb growing beyond it, because in a lot of ways they both have kind of like misconceptions over what happened and like why their family was taken from them. And like here I really like the confrontation between Anisha and Ake, because I think that kind of sort of brings it all to the surface. I
liked a lot about that entire dynamic. I thought the way that Noose sets himself up as running the debate, as well as being right in the first place, and that we're here to democratically confirm that I am right, not to test it, which is exactly what's going on around the world. And yes, America, the United States plays the big international version of that, but the same things happened in New Zealand over the COVID response, for
Canada
example.
too.
If you show somebody with hard information that they're wrong, they'll just tell you, no, that's a lie, fake news.
Right.
Here's
my nephew sits exactly in that, so it's amazing to watch the mental flip people will do to stay correct, and it makes me challenge myself and go, where am I doing that? Because we all do it in some way or another to protect ourselves.
See, one thing I thought was Star Trek likes its character foils, like where one character is a reflection of the other. And the thing with the reflection is it's not a portrait, it's the reverse. So we have Caleb with this extreme trauma from things he saw and perceived and only understood through his eyes. Noose has the same thing. Both of them have reacted differently when confronted with truth that conflicts with something that is literally part of their core identity. And I think that's actually really good because, well, that's real life. Like some people, when they're confronted with something that upends a core part of their own identity, some people like Caleb will eventually, through a lot of things, find a balance and other people like Noose are going to double down.
Let it tear them apart. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like children, like when you take kids out of gangs, for instance. Some kids, you can take them out of a gang, give them the help, the resources, and the options, and some of them will make good on themselves, whereas others will just keep going back to it because that's the identity. And that's what I thought was interesting is we've got Caleb and Noose, and they're the foils in this case.
Well, I was going to say that a well-written villain has got some part of their character is enough to generate a sliver of sympathy for that character. And I think finding out about Noose's childhood trauma gives him that sliver of sympathy. But then again, Paul Giamatti does a really good job with a huge screen presence. So what more can I say?
Huge. He kills that role so hard. He's amazing.
Okay. Honestly, did anyone else get Star Wars vibes from? But they shot red and we shoot blue and green.
Oh, that was kind of silly.
It was a little
Star Wars.
It was quite silly.
Yeah, and I was trying to think, is that true?
I know. I was like,
that's the first thing.
Fire was red until I guess now.
Yeah, we were pretty sure. Like, wait a second, didn't they? Is that so? Is that true?
I mean, I guess it has been 900 years, and they said the last few centuries. But like, okay, then, all right.
Yeah, it makes me want to go back and watch Phaser Fire again.
Like torpedoes.
Javon's trying to say something here.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I think I've seen reddish oranges, torpedoes, or Phaser Fire. I mean, I think it was kind of an interesting plot device to kind of like shake up this narrative. But I mean, it's the 29th century, 30th century, like
32nd century, yeah.
Yeah, so
whatever.
I think it was the purpose of it was to kind of shatter this illusion that Noose was, he's kind of framing the whole thing that, so it shakes the frame. But I think point taken, they could have tinted the Phaser Fire, I guess.
I'm going to throw this one up here because Dallas is downstairs sick, and so the question on the screen is actually Dallas. That's Dallas's ID. I know that one. He's saying, "How do you feel about the news broadcasts that Noose is doing?" Because to him, he said last night, he's like, "Makes me think of Fox News."
100% to this matter.
It was so fast and generic, and they would like just pop it up and then pop it back out, and we're just like,
I love the variations.
We're not sure
I love how many different versions of like Noose is big bad strong man, and he's got the Federation who are bad boys cornered.
That sounds
there's a writer.
Is the Federation guilty?
I'll give a UK perspective of this. It reminds me of the BBC breaking news that comes up in the bottom of the screen if you're on the news channel.
There's a writer who pointed out that in so many of these universes, there's no pop culture. Mm-hmm. And I think Star Trek has at times done a good job when they talk about people who are like hollow authors writing like holodeck stories. But how do people get news and information in a galaxy or quadrant with many billions of people? How do they share information? Are there pop culture and stories and things like you can imagine? I think that, Jake Sisko becomes a reporter and an author. So I think this is one of those world building things that's low key, just generally ignored in sci-fi, but specifically ignored kind of in Star Trek about the spread of news, information, pop culture, all that. So I liked it in that it at least touches on a point that regardless of whether somebody's on Talax or Earth or whatever they're calling Vulcan now, news is getting out about things.
It's kind of a fun window into life outside the Federation and how like everything sort of works and exists out there. I agree. It definitely like expands the universe a little bit and makes it feel more lived in.
Kind of reminds me of Babylon 5 because Babylon 5 had news broadcasts built into the show too.
Oh, Bab 5 was forever ago. That's ancient.
Yeah.
Good memes. So Eve, you brought up earlier that this kind of had parallels to you for the Q trial. But we were actually thinking about as this thing started, we actually have a completely different perspective on a parallel because just the other day we were watching TNG, where Data had a child, Data's daughter-in-law,
Data's daughter,
and we couldn't help but draw the parallel between Captain Picard fighting, hypothetically ruining his career to keep Data in possession of his child, versus Nala Ake. I'm sorry, my hands are tied. We can't do anything. You killed another guy, so on and so. And we have to think, it seems like Starfleet Academy, in this huge time skip, because, you know, several hundred years of the burden and stuff, it seems that Starfleet Academy is having to rehash old problems from older generations, because for whatever reason, the burn has caused them to forget a lot of their old values. Picard would never let Caleb Meir be separated from his mother. He would say, no, stand your ground, Data. We're not doing, I'm taking this all the way to the top. You know, that's what he said. You know, hold your ground. Do not leave this room, Data. Ignore this admiral that just told you what to do. This is my ship. I'm not letting this kid leave this ship. And we do not see that from Nala. We see Nala regretting that she did not do that. And we think we couldn't help but draw that parallel, having seen that episode just the day before yesterday.
I don't think Nala would work as doing it as Picard did. Like, I don't think it would have, for her overall character, I don't think it would make sense to have her be like, you know, the way Picard was.
She's not as strong locally.
Yeah. But to be fair, Picard was not a father. Nala was a mother.
It's also a very different federation that Picard is dealing with, right? Where he has that kind of sway and bluster as the captain of the flagship of the Federation, right? She's presumably at that point, was she fully a captain at that point? Like, that's
she's a captain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is
but
nice.
She was also in charge of a penal of whatever she was in charge of.
I think if she was a captain, she was just like captain of a ship, but she was passing some kind of justice based on being like involved in this investigation into this officer's death. So like, I do think that's kind of a different context where like Data just created a child and then the Federation was like, we get to control that child actually. In this case, there were like established laws where like if you kill someone and then you go to a penal colony, your child becomes a ward, you get visitation. It's not a good solution. And under the circumstances, I don't think it is that reasonable. And I think that's why Nala eventually comes to grips with that. But I think in the moment, she initially feels like, oh, I got them the best possible deal. And then she sees this ripple effect out where like Caleb makes a break for it and grows up on the run alone. His mom's just in prison, separated from her child, like desperate the whole time. And she's got this unfulfilled promise to like facilitate these visits. And now, oops, I lost your kid. And so then she's like, oh God, we've bungled this. I've bungled this. And she feels so much shame. She like leaves the Federation over it. And like, it's not enough. It'll never be enough. And that's why that confrontation between the two of them was like so meaty, because like Anisha's right. She's right. But so is Captain Ake to an extent. And it's just a bad situation with bad pressure from all directions where everyone made mistakes and did bad things, and they all have to deal with the consequences of that.
So I
very much liked the way that there's an overall arch with this story about the Federation getting off who it used to be. So jumping from that stage of Picard, where Picard could do that, where the Federation had a moral boundary, I would argue in that Federation, this wouldn't have happened at all. But they talk, but they allude to that over the with the Dominion War and with everything that happened, they got scared and more scared until the Romulan situation happens in Picard and all of that, to the point where the Federation got insular and frightened. And this is what the show's arc is about, bringing back a Federation with morals. So I quite liked that nice bow tie almost of trying to fix what has happened and understanding where that fear got out of control.
I think that they're harsh in reaction to that fear, just kind of building on what Adam said. I also was thinking if this were back in any other pre-burn situation, they would have found something like thousands of hours of community service or something for Anisha that would have
man.
200 hours immediately.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Why do they have mops? Why do microfiber mops still exist?
To make it
Punish
menial.
cadets.
It's not menial.
Wax on, wax off, baby.
Right. Exactly.
So,
if you got technology that does it for you, it's not menial, right?
You find something more productive.
In this future, in particular, Caleb would have been better off in going to the Starfleet or Federation school than he would have been out on his own in a dirty, dangerous universe. And Anisha is a criminal. Let's not forget that she is at least complicit in a crime where a life was taken. And granted, the Federation penal colonies post-burn may not be like what appeared to be, a work situation like Tom Paris was in Voyager. He started off as a criminal as well. And he was like landscaping or something. Like, I mean, frankly, whatever he was going through in that, Voyager era, Next Generation era, there are people trying to like actively escape cities so they can farm and do that now. So I
might be pro New Zealand, but I've just got to jump here and say New Zealand is not a penal colony. Thank you.
But
just neighbors to one.
Coming back to the idea of you got to own your mistakes and you got to grow up, and also again recognizing the impacts that we all have on other people and on the world. Anisha too was trying to just say, like, you ruined my life. I'm out here just trying to survive, and that's real. Does stealing bread to feed your family make someone a criminal? Especially again in a universe that is not safe and welcoming and all that.
Les Miserables.
Yep.
It does kind of bring us back a little bit to like the contrast between Noose and Caleb, and like a big difference I think in how they both turned out is Noose Braca didn't have Ake to come like reach out a hand to him. He didn't have a community of like scrappy cadets to like come together to like be a found family for him. He's the version of Caleb that was just left in the uncaring universe with nobody. And it's just so interesting to see, like, but for the grace of the Federation.
I mean, he's got two parents who probably didn't even like each other that much. I mean, come on, a Klingon and a Tellarite. Like, still trying to figure that one out.
We have been told so many times, like, a Klingon Tellarite hybrid, how much more do you need to know about this guy to know that he's going to be a pain in your rear? Like,
I will say he does have a certain arrogance and grandstanding like Q, and that's what I was thinking was some of his attitudes and the way he approaches things, where he's sort of trying to push things the way Q does to get the answer he wants. And like Q, he throws a temper tantrum when he doesn't get the answer he wants. But unlike Q, who always has a reason and a why, Noose is just an agent of chaos at this point.
He's just running on hate.
There was definitely a pretty strong link to that trial and the way that it was written. I mean, when those words came out, coming back to the original question, when those words came out, my brain went, could this be Q? Are we gonna? Is this a link to Q? Are we gonna? What's going on here? Because I can't help but conspiracy theorize about every storyline on every show ever about where it's going to go. And I saw that as well. But I also like, even if there's nothing there, I like that callback because it's got quite a next gen feel to it, and in the sense of something very rebooted. Because we've played around so much in the next gen era, and that's one thing I love about the Academy era. It's like, okay, you can write now. You're not bound by too much of what's going on around it.
You can just grab the little bits of canon you want from any era and like weave them in, but you're not beholden to it the way the prequels are. I honestly am I really hope this kind of like for a while like ends the prequel era. Like I want just everything to be like post Picard or later. Post Discovery is honestly great in my opinion. I know a lot of people like have weird hate towards this era of Trek, but I like it, and I'm just I don't want to see another Spock relation, another Spock girlfriend. Like I'm tired of it. Like I want new characters, new stories. Give me something fresh, and that's what we got this season.
I think that's where society is at though right now. I was reading an article because I read too much. And they were saying you've got one part of society now who's wanting to move on from the past, wanting to make change, wanting this and that. But then you've also got the other half of society is very much a nostalgia generation. They want the nostalgia. They want it to stay the same. They want what's familiar and comfortable because we live in a very chaotic time, which we do.
Then watch the old shows. That's what I do when I'm craving 90s Trek. I put 90s Trek on. No one's taking it away. That's what drives me crazy is like they're so scared to let this show evolve because we're holding on to this era of Trek that a lot of people also misremember as being way better than it was. Like, don't get me wrong. 90s Trek is fantastic. It has a silly streak a mile wide and it has a stupid streak a mile wide. Like some of the plots are bad. Like the amount of just outrageously bad episodes.
We're reminded of
in particular that people just pretend don't exist. I'm like, TNG seems like #1 perfect Star Trek if you only watch the good episodes. But we remember Sub Rosa, okay?
Yep.
we just you're ranting about this, and we just remember the Crusher and Deanna Troy calisthenics scene that offers nothing, but it's amazing.
And I love that Lower Decks parodied it. It was so good.
Yeah, I mean,
that whole thing in Lower Decks just
worlds,
made me buy this.
For every best of both worlds, we've got a Sub Rosa and a 50 Shades of Riker. I mean,
and we have the entire first season.
Yeah. For every Guardian on the Edge of Forever, we also have Kirok and the Obelisk. Like, I mean,
we got the Code of Honors. We got your Angel Ones. Like,
I'll defend Angel One to a point in that the concept was interesting. The execution failed.
Oh yeah, no, fun idea.
And I will give it honestly, it was the first time I actually wasn't disgusted with Riker, because he was so he's such a.
You were enamored by the deep V-neck.
No, I actually don't like the way he looks. I just like the fact that he was showing in his own weird Riker way that while he's a space Lothario, he actually wanted to respect the women. So he was respecting the way he would need to dress for his potential encounter. Like because Riker at least was about consent, and he was like, he was at least trying to show like, okay, obviously he was down to clown, but at the same time, he was willing to, show respect as well. Like, because he wore the outfit respectfully. He wasn't wearing it to be like, look at my chest.
Well, okay, maybe a little.
I think that was the script writer, not Riker.
Yeah, that was somebody who probably liked Jonathan Frakes a lot.
So
who doesn't like Jonathan Frakes a lot?
Well, I mean, Jonathan Frakes is very likable a lot. So,
all right,
Eve,
go ahead, Philosophy.
Before we wanted to move on, and we know kind of drag this. Somebody talked about the Anisha Mir, and Nala thing earlier. And we wanted to kind of focus on that for just like a couple seconds about how we really liked how it featured Anisha Mir going after Nala about like, what did you do for the people you hurt? You retired in glory and went off to teach children on Bajor with a cushy scenario. But what does that do for Anisha? What does that do? We think that there's so much in today's culture of somebody being personally responsible means like, oh, I hurt somebody, but I moved on and I changed my life and I did better for other people. But what did you do for the for the victim? What did you do for the person that you wronged originally? And more we see that starting to become a focusing point in, like, you know, in the standard, you know, what we talk about in public. You know, and we like that they focused on that. You know, Anisha Mir is all like, yeah, what did you do to make up for it? You retired, you went off to live on a beautiful planet and teach a bunch of kids.
Soft landing.
Yeah, nothing like a soft landing. And we like that, you know, Anisha really hammered that in. She was like, hey man, how was life really that bad for you compared to me and my child, you know?
To be fair though, she didn't give up on Anisha. And I mean, Caleb's choices were literally prison or the academy, and her saying, but I'll help you with your, you know, help you find your mom. I don't think she ever really wanted to give up looking, but when somebody like Anisha goes on the run, they don't want to be found, which is going to make it harder for somebody who's trying to find them, to right wrongs, to find them. So Caleb, I think, was the one chance that Nala had to make things right, in that, you know, without Caleb, there's no way she was going to find Anisha.
I very much liked the way that Ake's speech turned that around as well, because that was very much, I'm the only one who's broken. This is all, I'm innocent and a victim, was very, very much going through that entire string.
Yeah.
And when Ake finally got her moment and her speech and talked about the bigger picture here and the wider victims and because when we finished that sequence that you just described, I was like, yeah, wow, I was very much on her side. This is wrong and everything. But when she spoke about that wider picture, it made me go, what else could she have done?
Yeah.
What else? Where were her? What was she meant to do? Go and tie herself to a cross and say, okay, the only way out of this is to whip me for the rest of my life. Like,
if anything,
and there is that feeling.
Yeah. But if anything, coming to the as chancellor is her way of saving a whole bunch of Caleb's, if whichever ones need it. Obviously not Raimi, but
he needs a different kind of system.
So bad, actually. His own rough time.
Exactly. I think I just wanted to add one point sort of off of Adam, that I think that the writers did a great job of making both sides of this argument really strong, which made the entire sequence here, and I'd say the episode, really, really strong.
Added a lot of humanity to it, we'd say.
Yeah. All right. We should kind of move on, because there's more of the episode than, you know, our favorite villain and his mustache twirling antics. A big one, because a few of us were
really
talking...
mustachy during this episode.
No, but okay. So a couple of us actually thought of the same thing. The Doctor's mobile emitter appearing. What does that tell it? Like, does he still need it? Because I mean, it's pretty worn when we see it, and he says, "You know, be careful. I've had this for a century."
I think it's like a safety blanket. It's like a keepsake from a simpler time. I think, like Sam, he's just like able to project in most places now from either some internal power source or just emitters everywhere.
Well, the portable emitter was like 27th century tech or whatever. So
now it's obsolete.
He's way, he should be way beyond
that. I had one thought, which is this his Hermes execution might have required something more than whatever power source or hollow device he has internally. That this was kind of a booster, was my logic working, but I could easily be wrong.
Well, we were kind of thinking it was like a thumb drive, you know, with an emergency program or a boot up disk on it or whatever, you know,
like one of those isolinear data chips.
Yeah.
Well, I just love it from a sci-fi perspective that, science fiction is supposed to, like, it gives tools and ways to, like, reimagine what this interaction is. And, distraction and misdirection is a classic battle strategy, and to use it in a way that also incorporates the character. I just think they've done a good job of planting those little Easter eggs, and also not letting us, forget about, this character is not a person in a traditional sense. So I think it worked in a lot of ways. One of my really personal pet peeves about science fiction is when, like, there's so many of these stories that, they use science fiction as a hook, but the story itself is very human and could have worked even just as well or even better without, like, some weird science fiction hook. And I think this was a great example of how, the science of the fiction in this served a meaningful purpose, but then had ramifications, going from, let's say he had to transfer himself to this thing, he couldn't just pull this maneuver. He was traumatized by it. So I think that was another good element, about this, kind of almost a kamikaze move or something, that it wasn't without consequence for the Doctor to, jump into the battle in that way.
That's a good point. That actually, I was kind of not adding all of that up a little bit, and it's clarified in my mind what went on there. And it makes me think, actually, hold on a moment, not only is his emitter out of date, he is.
Yeah.
If you made a hollow today, well, in academies today, it would have to be massively more sophisticated than him. He's a Model T driving around with with Teslas, essentially. So
I think living for 900 years makes him more complex than the average newly created hologram. Plus, he's probably had, like, upgrades. He was upgrading his system and making changes even in Voyager. So he's probably doing that, like, throughout the time that the holo technology is updating.
We're just reminded of Discovery. You broke my holograms. We don't think he would break nearly as easily.
Yeah, he's like old,
blinking
but
at
he's
them.
also, like, still fresh.
Yeah. Speaking of breaking the hologram, somebody said, has something's wrong with the Doctor become its new own Star Trek trope?
Yes.
Yes.
100%. Absolutely.
But
yeah. I mean, I like seeing the mobile emitter because for me from episode 1, where's that mobile emitter was bothering me. Because the mobile emitter we know was like, what was it, 29th century technology or something? It was very advanced.
No, it was 24th.
Or 4th, was it? Oh,
no, because they were in the 24th by Voyager.
Right. He had but they created a mobile emitter for him.
No, some guy came back in time and they took the mobile emitter from
that.
Yeah.
Sorry, forgot the
and we think it was the 27th
time
century
travel
he came back.
shenanigans.
I know it was a few centuries ahead because every time the mobile emitter got damaged, they had trouble fixing it because they didn't know what it was.
29th century tech, allegedly, according to the internet.
Okay.
Okay,
so that part's settled. Everything, most of the questions we have seem to surround all about that last half of the episode. We've got kind of an interesting side debate going here between Dallas and Dan in the comments. So I'm going to try and put this up here for a little bit of discussion. So Dallas's initial comment is that, which I showed, there it is. He said, Paul Giamatti is a great cartoon villain. And then Dan says he's seen a lot of people say something along the lines of it. And he thought he was like Academy's Harry Mudd, but is now more evil and dark. And then Dan also says how cartoonish he is open for debate, given that Michelle wrote in her Warp Factor Trek review that he's not cartoonish, but Dallas is describing him as such. And then Dallas's comment is that he's emphatic, bombastic, dramatic. He doesn't express himself in half. He's kind of over the top is the sense I'm getting, which is, I think, where the cartoonish side comes in. But
shouting, I made a funny laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, like, so let's, since we've got this whole side debate going on here with the two that aren't with us, discuss.
Well, I will easily defend my review because I actually think I'm thinking Newsbracker along the lines of more of a complex villain. So, and I think he's up there in quality with like villains like Descartes and Wynne.
See, I thought he was very, very deliberately written as a certain orange leader. He's got he has a heck of a lot of that
from this episode.
grandstanding, no substance, anger to rile people up, like very little actually underneath it, except using what he knows will trigger people, will get their attention, will get them on his side at the cost of everything.
But he's way
it very
smarter.
much
He
sounded like he
farther
was just
ahead.
him. Well, that's true. He's actually smart. But
Way smarter.
Yeah,
He thinks way farther ahead,
I'm going to jump off. Go ahead, Alice.
Oh, I was just to say, in terms of behavior, I completely agree with Adam, but Paul Giamatti's intellect shines through. So
I was going to jump off of what Cadet Adam says because he tickled my brain. The thing about him grandstanding, he showboats, he carries on, and then other people saying, but there's an intelligence. Chicago, the lawyer, Billy Flynn, played by Richard Gere. How he's very smart, but his whole way of getting women off of their crimes, whether they're justified or not, is he grandstands. The whole thing's a show. He does that whole song, razzle dazzle, and then there's the part where he's puppeteering her like she's a puppet. And so you just kind of tickled my brain when you mentioned the showboating and the loudness and everything, and it made me think literally Chicago. With the right song and dance, you can get away with anything. And so in Newsbraka's case, there's the intelligence there, but that he hides it behind this grandiose, verbose, ebullient, over the top
news channel.
Yeah.
He's
the greatest showman.
I first thought he was, when we first saw him back in episode 1, I was thinking very much Harry Mudd. And this episode is the one that gave him more complexity from that, Michelle. I was waiting for it for a while, and I could just see Roger C. Carmel and Harry Mudd just coming to the fore, but Mudd was harmless, and even when they redid him in Discovery, he was still just harmless, and Noose is anything but.
Dallas was saying just quickly that he says he's seen I saw Shoot 'Em Up, and he was a literal Elmer Fudd. I haven't seen Shoot 'Em Up, so I can't speak to that.
Haven't seen that either. On the note of the comparison between Mudd and Noose, so we don't know if anybody here's seen read the High Crusade by Powell Anderson, but in the book, the narrator talks about like the main protagonist and how he appears to be a man who is in the process of falling over, and the only way he can stay on his feet is by running faster. That's hardcore Fenton Mudd. He can't help himself. He just if he slows down at any moment, he's gonna fall over and faceplant. So he's just got to keep running faster, and by God does he run. Whereas Newsbraka very much seems, from our perspective, very much seems to be more of a determinator. He is the one trying to run the show. He is the one trying to dictate the things, but personality wise, the bombacity, the over the top, showmanship and all that, all absolutely there. So we suppose this is what Newsbraka is a bit of a colder, more calculating Mudd with less attachment.
He's a little bit of what's the villain's name in the Captain Proton cartoons? Chaotica. Yeah, he's got the way he speaks a little bit reminds me of Chaotica too, like that over the top, loves to hear himself speak, very much in love with himself. Like he reminds me a little bit of Chaotica too. Like I could see him in Chaotica, that'd be an interesting combination.
I think this is a good way in which New Trek is distinguishing itself, especially from like Next Generation era, in that Next Generation era feels very corporate in a way. It's very pristine, and the even the settings and things look like an office space, and the characters
I call
are
it
all
the hotel
very
conference room era of Trek.
yeah, and the characters, they come in with decorum and process and protocol, and we see that start to strip away in DS9, and again, in this new post-burn era of Trek. The characters are more colorful. The interactions are not always about decorum and protocol. And, we're not dealing in the era of the UN and the United Nations and, delegations coming to communicate with each other. We're dealing in an era of chaos and anarchy. And, people who do not care about the standard protocol for communication. They're out for the justice they want.
Yeah, I was going to say too, when you said the hotel conference room era of Trek, I was thinking shiny, happy Trekkies. But even Cisco says at one point, it's easy to be a saint in paradise.
Right.
But we don't have
Paradise
paradise now. Paradise is gone.
The golden age is over. Yeah.
Paradise Lost.
Next Gen was still so influenced by Roddenberry and his naval view. Yeah. Well, hopefulness, but that continued as an undercurrent, and it's still even here. But that we had gone past all of our conflict. We were operating as one great society. And I remember there was a video interview with Michael Piller later in Next Gen, and said that one of the reasons they had to bring the Borg in and other villains was that they couldn't have any conflict between the crew members, especially when Roddenberry was around. So they had to bring it in from the outside. And here, and Deep Space Nine did this too. You have such internal conflict and conflict among your characters, which is great.
And going with conflict among the characters, in the same scene, we have Sam and Genesis, which I think needs to be discussed, because Sam is now
I would love to
person.
explore that. I didn't completely, I'll be honest, I did not completely get what Sam's issue was with. It felt contrived. Where did that come from? Why aren't they, what's going on there?
I love that. That conflict between the two of them, I'm obsessed with it. It's so good because, like, from the start, like, she does have this like big sister kind of like mentory role with Sam. Like, she teaches Sam how to like shake hands. She's constantly like giving Sam little like tips for like fitting in with the humans, right? And so she kind of takes that sort of leadership role, and Sam does follow her around. Like, I think about in Vitus Reflux, how she's like, popping up in line in the Calica tryouts, like spouting Genesis's credentials because she cares so much about that. And she's like, she is kind of like a little puppy at first, following Genesis around. Like, that's true. And then she goes through this whole character evolution where she has her childhood with the Doctor. She has to reconcile these totally different versions of herself with these totally different experiences. And when she comes out on the other side of it, she's not that little puppy dog who needs to follow Genesis around. Like, their dynamic is completely different because Sam is completely different. And so they have to kind of go through this process of getting to re-know each other. And Sam also has like her own sort of hangups over who she used to be. Like, she has a lot of negative opinions about her own memories and her own experience. And like, she sees her past self as basically very naive and doesn't value a lot of the things that made that version of herself special. And so she thinks that Genesis only loves that version of her. And then we get to see this whole thing where like they come back together and Genesis says, no, I love you as you are, even if I also loved that version of you too. And it's beautiful. I just wish that we got more time on their relationship throughout the first season, because like it was sort of always a background thing, but I would have honestly loved to have kind of a Genesis and Sam episode or bigger storyline worked into one episode where we spend a little more time on it, because it's not that it doesn't feel earned, because it does, but I feel like it would have really like packed that wall up if we had just a little bit more rounding of that initial relationship between the two of them. But I thought the setup was still really good, and the payoff did still like really hit me.
I had a lot of problems with Sam at the start. I found her really annoying and really contrivedly, naive, and there is kind of a punchline. So I really wasn't expecting, and was really pleased to see her at least go through the childhood with the doctor and have him become her father and all of that kind of stuff. And I can see where it's still bumpy in her portrayal going forward, because there's a little bit of the she's like the uber adolescent who really doesn't know what she wants or who she is or anything else. But I like her so much better now.
For me, this thing with Sam reminded me of a student of mine. He went through this stage as a teenager where he got very into communism for some reason, which is ironic considering his mother came from behind the Iron Wall. But he meant well, and I knew it was teenage naivete. And then when he graduated, he did this trek called the Camino, which is an incredibly difficult hike that was taken by monks, like a pilgrimage. And it is an incredibly challenging trip to make. And he made this trip, and I remember he came back like a completely different person with a completely different perspective and a completely different grip on life. So Sam being like that kind of made me think of him in a way. But I do want to say my favorite line in the whole episode, other than Noose saying to Reno, "I don't like you," is where Sam's like, "I'm not the Sam I used to be," and blah, blah, blah. And Janice is like, "I wouldn't expect you to be. Nobody would be. That's crazy." Like, Genesis does have a certain maturity to her behind the arrogance she has or whatever. Like, she does have a certain maturity, and she is very perceptive of people, even if she doesn't seem like she is. And for me, that was a really good moment when she just stops and she's, "I don't expect you to be, but I'm still going to love you."
I loved that moment where she says, "We need to be who we are right now." That felt so Star Trek to me, because it's like, we need the unique things about all of us to come together to save the day. We need that special little spark that everyone has. And I was just like, "Mwah, that's beautiful. Hell yeah."
And Genesis has shown that she's very good at figuring out what people are good at and putting them in that position. Like, she's very good. She'd be very good as a director of something, because she knows where to put people and where they're best suited.
Natural
leadership.
Natural leadership choice. Yeah.
Javon, you've been kind of quiet. You got some thoughts?
So I feel like Genesis is dealing with, she's a leader who hasn't led anybody. She comes from this leadership family, this leadership background, the expectation that she will, Admiral's daughter will go to Starfleet, be top of her class, kick butt, take names, and be in a captain's seat in 4 years. But leadership is earned. And, it's earned in subtle moments and being able to see people and find the best in them, but also in like figuring out what you're not good at. And so, I see that. Yeah, I love what they've done with Sam as, this person. Again, I think growing up is the theme of the show. And she has experienced that in a particular way. Somebody who was just like, 1 minute a child and then, struggled to understand the world. Like, she's that classic, like almost homeschool kid who suddenly finds themselves in college.
That's perfect.
And now, and no shade against homeschool kids. I was a homeschool kid at one point, but just in the way that, that very sheltered child comes into a much wider world and then has to like, there are other people and other things and feelings. And, having been sheltered from the stress of life, does not necessarily set them up for, and maybe there's a parallel in that, as I'm thinking out loud, between Sam and Genesis, that, maybe Genesis thought it was going to be easier being in Starfleet, where maybe Sam, didn't know what to expect. So they're both kind of crashing into getting beyond, their initial upbringing into this kind of like mismatch of people and personalities and hard things to solve.
You and I might
I've got
a
to
homeschool
up
thing there, Siobhan, because I had a completely different homeschool experience. I did not know any naive or sheltered homeschoolers. So you and I might have to have that talk offside.
Oh yeah, I think my
just wanna
homeschool
mention one
experience
thing
was
about
radically different as well.
Okay, Phyllis?
I'm just going to mention one thing that bothered me in the episode when I guess it was humorous and maybe I don't get the comedy, but when Genesis sits in the captain's chair finally and goes, "I've got to pee," I was like, which Star Trek is this coming from? Lower Decks?
No, I love that.
Yeah,
that was so real. As somebody who always has to pee, that was so real. We were like, yes, this is my but I really gotta pee.
Yeah, no, we have chronic gut issues and have for our entire life, and we're over here like, all right, Genesis, you officially just reached out beyond the screen and connected with us on a personal level. All right.
I have celiac disease. I get it. But one thing I've noticed with my students is with my music students, the ones that are the most hardcore to get on stage and do it, the ones who show nerves, I don't worry about. The ones who are like, oh yeah, I got this and everything, those are the ones I worry about, because those are the ones who literally will get up on stage and have this look on their face like, I gotta pee, like, because it hits them all of a sudden at once. And I think that's just more to do with how we deal with stress. And
okay,
so to me, it's not that far out there, but it's only because I've seen it in my own experience. Like the ones who are so gung ho when they finally get their moment, they're like, what? They kind of have that. All of a sudden, everything tenses up. So.
When you get in front of the crowd and your stomach turns into a brick and suddenly you need to manually control all of your bodily functions. Yeah, no. We did theater and we did choir as a child, so like
you get it.
100% right there. We know very personally the experience. Yeah.
I think going to the bathroom is like it. I think in this era, or at least acknowledging it, is like a thing in TV now. But, there was an era when they didn't even show toilets.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to.
Yeah, but The Pit, which is a great show for anybody who hasn't watched it. In season 1, there's kind of this running joke about Dr. Robbie, the main character. Like he can't escape the ER long enough to pee. Like every time he tries to go to the bathroom, something interrupts him. But in the same way, like where's the pop culture in the Star Trek universe? When do people go to the restroom? Because they're just like.
That was the thing in TNG, because I remember a lot of people talking TNG and saying, where are the bathrooms on the Enterprise?
Yeah.
Somebody said like the original Enterprise had one bathroom, and I'm like,
they made an entire 3D like walk through the Enterprise computer program. You could go into everybody's quarters, you could go everywhere. There was not a bathroom on that show.
And then I remember too, there was a comment in Voyager, I think it was the Millennium Gate episode, or it was one of the other ones about remembering history wrong or getting first perceptions of Earth. So I can't remember which episode, but I remember Janeway saying, well, when the Ferengi saw Earth, they fell in love with Wall Street. The Bolians complained about our bad plumbing. We have had poop and pee jokes in Star Trek before, to be fair, I don't know how else to put that. It makes me sound like I'm 5. But
Voyager had a lot of them. It was a regular concern with the Doctor. The Bolian, particularly the Bolian. And Janeway was always just like, all right, I'll get it taken care of. So
I think DS9 there's references to a fresher. Certainly when you're in Dax's quarters and you are quarterly invited.
Okay.
I get where you like. I had both reactions actually, Phyllis, to that moment. I thought it was funny, but also a little bit like, okay. But then I also thought, that it also made the point of these are young people all of a sudden in the captain's chair. Like I thought it was quite. And it was an interesting juxtaposition of that old era where, let's face it, the toilet thing actually comes out of, you don't talk about that on TV. It wasn't anything to do with Star Trek. It was just that. It's like, you know, if you go back far enough, you didn't have couples in the same bed on
Right.
you know,
right. Yeah.
I Love Lucy.
I Love
Lucy.
She was had a condition. She had a condition.
Yeah.
She wasn't with child. She had a condition. Like,
Right.
you need to talk about these things.
She was infected.
We will
well,
say,
it is a parasite for 9 months.
We will say, we think we've noticed this actually a lot more in Star Trek recently, especially with Strange New Worlds. Is Star Trek has incorporated in recent seasons a lot more bathos. Anybody here know what bathos is? Like in reference to, okay, so we're gonna make another, because we were watching A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. They came out concurrently, so it's actually a really good first episode of both came out like the same week. So in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, at the very first episode, first 5 minutes, so it's not a big spoiler, the main character is like, oh, I'm gonna go be a knight, and you hear the background music from the old Game of Thrones, and you're like, yeah, oh, totally, he's gonna be a cool knight. And then it skips to a scene of him, leaning over a tree, crapping himself, and the music stops, and we realize, like, oh yeah, this isn't a consequential story of saving the universe or the kingdom or whatever. Let's take the serious down a little bit. And we've noticed that Star Trek that's called bathos. And Star Trek has been using bathos a lot more in recent series, especially with the end of Discovery and the beginning of Strange New Worlds. We've noticed a lot more bathos.
To throw the guys' comments up there, Dallas was like, yes, old Starship schematics forgot to put in the bathrooms. And then Dan says, Dan's like, it reminds me of First Contact, and he brings up that scene where Cochrane tells Geordi, I gotta take a leak, and Geordi's like, I don't detect a leak, and he's like, don't you people from the 24th century pee?
Yeah.
Also brings us to Enterprise, like where he very obviously is like, oh yeah, totally, we're drinking our pee right now.
And then there's the Orville. The Orville have the Mocklins, where they have that ritual that they pee once a year. And
oh my god, that's one of the best episodes, dude. Holy crap.
I just remembered it. And because I consider Orville Star Trek.
Oh, it's definitely Star Trek homage.
Michelle, you look like you're trying either not to laugh or not to cry laughing. What's going on down there? Talk to us.
It's just all this discussion about bodily functions. Yeah.
Hey, Everybody Poops is a book.
Yeah. I do remember in Enterprise being rather peeved about actually having to handle the bathroom question, let's just say.
All right, I'm going to throw one last one out there, because I know Dan's going to want to wrap it up soon. But I'll throw this one out there because more than a few people brought it up. Reno, was this the best Reno episode? What did we like about Reno? How do we feel about Reno?
Yes.
Oh my god,
she was amazing.
Yeah.
The episode.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm a Reno fan, so I'll defend any episode she's in. But
we are officially now of the opinion that Reno is, like, bar none, not even a debate, top 3 captains of Starfleet history, period. Like, it was amazing how she stays serious, but not too serious, makes everything a learning opportunity, and also manages to still get her classic Reno jokes. Like, okay, guys, remember, we either do this perfectly or we're all dead. No pressure.
I think maybe that's why New says he doesn't like her. Like, he just looks at her and he's like, I don't like you. And I think it's because he knows right away he's got nothing on her. He can't manipulate her.
He can't take the piss out of anything.
He's no fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought her jokes landed, her asides landed so much better in this episode than they had before, that you know, and I wasn't wild about her on Discovery either. I think she was underutilized. So this was a pleasure to watch.
I think her tone and character is such an interesting kind of like, aside from Ake, who is accused of being all too unserious and walking around barefoot and maybe even at some points questioning her fitness to even be a leader or captain. She's also so different from Thok, who we recognize they're in a relationship together, who is bombastic in her own ways, but has like all this, Klingon dominion, bravado, which is, perfect for her character. I wish there had been more of that later in the seasons, but she's just got like boss attitude all throughout, commanding with that balance of just like very clear about what needs to be done, and also clear about like, this is a problem I can't solve, but we can solve this. How are we going to get out of this situation? And just very much like that kind of Star Trek thing that, when the crap hits the fan and we have all got to work together to solve the problems and put them in order and break them down. That kind of engineering thing. I'm a big fan of Geordi. I'm a big fan of O'Brien. I think the engineers have always brought so much to the Star Trek universe, and you just can. And she kind of holds that torch in a way I think is really cool.
One thing I love about that character.
This is a B, this is an A, this is a C. Like, I like that part.
What I love about her character is she doesn't fit any male or female trope by itself. She's not stuck in a you're a female, you've got to be struggling with this, or you're a male, you've got to be struggling with that. She's completely subtly sits in that middle space without having to go, hey, I'm in the middle space. And I just love that she transcends all of that so beautifully, and is extremely funny in the right moment, and in her way sets these people who are so green up to have a moment where they are Captain Picard, where everything is on their shoulders. And I thought that was quite a lovely, quiet little, just going, here's how you transition from a kid in school to somebody in charge of something that might explode. I thought that was quite nice.
Final exam moment where she's like, if you pass, you live. If you fail, we all die.
I wonder if for the second season, they're going to be out on more training missions and things like that, or run into more villains trying to upend the Federation or something. Because it seemed to me as though the Miyazaki and this were the strongest episodes for me.
Phyllis brings up what the one last thing. Phyllis kind of brings this up. You kind of segued into something here, Phyllis.
I saw that question. Yeah. So
I was going to say, we'll let Phyllis finish, and then I want each one of you to quickly drop a theory or prediction for season 2. Just one theory or one prediction, so we don't keep going too long here, that you think will happen or you want to see happen in season 2. So you finish up, Phyllis. I just want to point out your kind of segue.
I'm sort of general in that I want to see more training missions, more of them off and outside of the academy to the extent they can be. Somebody said at one point they wanted to see the Kobayashi Maru or something. I think yes, but not a simulation. And so that's what I'm hoping for in the next season.
Cadet Adam, we'll just go around.
Darum kiss.
Okay. I knew somebody was going to say something like that. I'm going to try and just go round table so I don't lose track. Cadet Adam.
I'm not sure. I hope we don't do a big bad every season, which is kind of where Discovery ended up. And I loved Discovery the whole way through, even when it was bad at the beginning. So I hope we don't do a big bad every season, but find a a thread to follow through. So yeah, missions, maybe a Kobayashi Maru, maybe a relearning of like the lesson that Deanna had to learn in order to be a leader of sometimes you have to sacrifice. You can't completely win. Like maybe some looking at some of those sorts of lessons. Yeah.
Velocity?
So we got like a couple like really short boys. First of all, they must expand on the hybrid era. We didn't get any knowledge on how the hell Lura Thok ended up happening. And that is
I agree.
our one-armed man since episode 1. What the hell is going on here? This is an issue. And of course, and they sort of seem like they just kind of wanted to do, oh, she's just another hybrid in the hybrid era. And we're like, no, you don't understand.
You have to explain this because they're not a species that would hybridize easily, you would think.
Well, the Klingons give birth traditionally. The other Jem'Hadar are established to hatch from eggs. Like you would think there's a different, tubing going on.
To be fair, I think we could do a whole episode. I think we could do a whole episode just on hybrids and how they would.
Right, and that's above all. We hope for an episode justifying the hybrid era. Because back in the day, a hybrid used to be like a big thing. We talked about it.
We got Romulan Klingon hybrid. We got human Klingon hybrid. Klingons have been banging forever. They boldly go.
They do boldly go. Yeah. They boldly go pretty hard. It's true.
Javon, have you got a prediction for us or a thought?
Where is Caleb's dad? We've gone this entire season without any real. I mean, is he an absent father? Did he die? What's going on? I think if we're going to continue in these kind of core themes about maturity and family and where do you come from versus where are you going, and just on that. So on the small level, I think Caleb's dad has got to hopefully come into the picture somewhere. On the bigger scale, I want to just see more of that, political expansion, redevelopment. What does this new Federation of Planets look like? I would love to see that in a big way. I feel like the only show that has ever really discussed what is life like for those in the Federation is Picard, where they're retirees and living in this kind of post-Federation experience. But now I think there's a real opportunity to kind of get into that wider universe that Starfleet takes place in. And now that everything is being rewritten and wide open for new explorations, I would love to see more of just what does this world look like now.
So before we move on, can we just put out can we have Caleb's dad be Idris Elba? We're just putting it out there. He obviously doesn't get his chiseled physique from his mom. So can we just move in sexiest black man in the world right there? Just
Absolutely, that would fit. Would it be the character from? Well, I guess that would be hundreds of years in the past, but always more. Come back with that's the Kelvin timeline.
Freezing. Temporal anomalies. There's ways to make it happen.
Hey, transport through a wormhole. That's what they did in the first part of the episode. So
transporter clone held in the buffer for 900 years.
Right.
It's been done before.
I hate to do this. I gotta keep things moving here. Ren, other than you want to see some boy on boy here. What any other things?
I think it would be really cute if I don't want too many because I think it would distract from our current crop of cadets, but I think it would be really cute if we get 1 or 2 new first years next season that our second years take under their wings a little bit. So while they're still growing, we also see the contrast of how they're more established than the new crop of baby lamb cadets, and I just think that would be adorable.
They did a little bit of that in Lower Decks, so
yeah,
that'd be nice.
Yeah, give me more of that. That's the good stuff.
And Phyllis kicked us all off, so I'm going to go to Michelle, who is waiting patiently.
Well, there's a few things I'd like to see a bit more of. First of all, I'd like to see how the relationship between Jet Reno and Laura Thought develops and how that changes their characters.
I'd
also like to see more of Tilly. And last but not least, this would make a great cliffhanger for the end of the season. I'd like to think that over the course of this next season, that Nus Baraka is sitting in his prison cell, plotting his next escape, and that the season 2 finale is his jailbreak.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Michelle just gave me a great plot that I would like to see now, which would be Mirrorverse Nus Baraka meeting himself. But for me, I'm superficial. I want to see something connecting the mirror universe or Section 31, because I still say I see their I see their fingers in this. There's too much. The ends justify the means, and all the darker Star Trek so far have showed us the Mirrorverse. And Nus Baraka going into the Mirrorverse. Now you just gave me a great plot. Maybe I'll get Dallas to write it because he's a better writer than I am. Because that would be my thing. I'd love to see like a mirror universe thing, especially if it involves Nus Baraka. So that's my quick takeaway. But otherwise, thank you for joining us, everybody, and everybody on the internet, and to Dallas and Dan, who couldn't be present, but were present in the background, talking in my ears like guys on my shoulders here. So I can't wait to talk to everybody and see you guys all in the next episode. And we're here every Saturday. It's Saturday, currently 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, thanks to daylight savings. But if you click our YouTube link, it shows you what time it's showing. If you've been watching, like, subscribe, drop us comments. We love to hear from you. Watch live. We'll put the comments up. And thank you to my fellow instructors. Live long and prosper.